Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
And listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast.
Holy smokes. Getting late in the day. We're doing this live. It's the Farm for Profit Podcast. If you're walking around outside, come on into the Soup Cup building.
I promise we haven't had anything to drink.
No,
That's just,
just
maybe the
pure
heat setting in
dehydration.
a little bit. But it's been a fun first day. This is exciting to have one to close out here. We've got to have a couple of conversations with our guests today and learn about their opportunities. And now it's time to share those conversations with you all. So if you're new to the podcast, we put out 2 shows a week. Some of them have a little bit more value than others. Others have a little bit more entertainment than others. But both of them are entertaining and educational.
I'm just going to put it out there. It is raining outside. If you're walking past the Soup Cup booth, this is one of the only places on the grounds. If it lightens, you can come in here and be safe. You can come in here, sit down, get out of the rain, people. This is good. So Tracy came to us last week.
Yes.
Or my weeks are starting to run together.
Nope, it was last week.
Yeah.
And filmed a little promo. So welcome, Tracy, to the show. Give us a little background about yourself.
Well, I'm the program director for the Easter Seals Rural Solutions program, and we support farmers and farm family members with disabilities across the state of Iowa.
So I got to say, I went and tagged Easter seals, and there was a lot of different Easter seals, Iowa and all these different states and programs. So is Easter seals like one big thing or just different chapters? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So in Iowa, we serve all 99 counties. So the affiliate in Iowa is for the whole state. But there's 70-some different affiliates across the country, and sometimes there's more than one affiliate in one state. But here, we've got the whole state.
Okay.
That's a big responsibility.
It is. It is, and I think that's one of the exciting things about Easter Seals is that we've always recognized the diverse needs of Iowans and why we have this unique program specifically to meet the needs of farmers and farm family members with disabilities. Certainly we support, we have a child development center, we have a mental health program or brain health program, and 19 different programs at Easter Seals, but really the diversity of looking at the needs of all Iowans with disabilities.
So it's not just agriculture, but you have agriculture programs.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. In fact, the Rural Solutions program at Easter Seals was started in the late 1980s, really when nobody was thinking about farming with a disability. And it was a group of farmers that were really feeling kind of alone and came to Easter Seals and said, we don't fit in really with all the other programs and just the unique nature of farming with a disability. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that gets overlooked, but we've interviewed a couple of folks on our guests that have shown that they can farm through disabilities, and we know some others on social media that are showcasing that it's that message of don't give up, don't give in, and we can adapt and you can overcome.
It's really true. You know better than anybody the tenacity of a farmer, and usually one of the first questions they ask after acquiring a disability, whether it be to a tragic incident or accident, or if it's a diagnosis of a mental health condition. And what they want to know is, can I continue to farm? A disability doesn't have to stop them. Maybe they do it different. Maybe they change their role on the farm, but it's possible to continue to do what they love.
So walk us through, let's say, I don't know what, I broke my leg or lost my leg, right? Is that something that could happen?
Absolutely.
That you guys help with?
Absolutely. Thank goodness we're seeing less farm-related incidences that cause disabilities versus what we saw 15 and 20 years ago. Amputations used to be much more prevalent than they are now, but absolutely. It also could be, I have multiple sclerosis, I had cancer, I had a stroke. So it really is, life is going along just like for us. And one day something happens and their life is forever changed.
Mobility, hearing, joints, vision. That's coming right off of your newsletter.
Yeah, it's all of it. And farming is hard work. And most of us don't want to stop farming ever. And so you think of the natural consequences of farming for 30, 40, 50 years and the natural aging process, and then you put on top of that a diagnosis, it can really create difficulties for people to know how to continue to farm and to do it safely.
What constitutes it as a disability versus just getting old and just can't get up on the combine or the tractor anymore?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, we're talking about disability and diagnoses, but that's not often the language we use with farmers. They often don't identify as a person with a disability. You know, when I first started this program, I had a farmer really teach me a difficult lesson. And he was an individual who had a bilateral leg amputation as a result of a combine accident. And so I was explaining our services and telling him, you know, we serve farm family members with disabilities. And he said, oh, well, that's not me. I just lost my legs. So really we phrase it as, do you have a limitation to help you to continue to farm? And if so, we're here to help you. We're here to support you. We're here to share ideas and help you along your journey.
Corey gave a guy a high five today. He was walking on a prosthetic leg across the Farm Progress Showgrounds when there's others that got golf carts that are, I'm going to say...
They have 2 good legs.
Yeah, there you go. Right. 2 good legs. Yeah, it's just, he didn't see no limitation. This is the way he's doing it.
Yeah, you know, that's just so common. That, you know, the tenacity of a farmer and this can-do spirit. And, you know, I think if you think about farming in and of itself, it just takes a lot of can-do spirit and rolling with the punches and dealing with the unexpected. So I think some farmers will tell us it's just in our DNA to adjust and accommodate according to continue to do what we love.
Yep. So we know that you help farmers with disabilities or limitations. Is there different programs? Is there just one overreaching program? And how does that program actually help?
Yes, so the program at Easter Seals, Iowa is the Rural Solutions Program, and our team members travel directly to the farmers and wherever it is they're residing. So, of course, farmers would not enjoy or appreciate to travel to our office, and plus we want to see their environment, we want to see their operation, we want to see where they're living. So we travel to where they're at, sit with them at the kitchen table, sometimes in the hog lot, wherever it may be, and help to identify where do they want to start? What's the most important piece for them to continue farming? And sometimes where we start is they just need to be able to get their coveralls on independently or their socks on. And sometimes we're looking at how can you get in and out of the cab of the tractor? How can you safely open up the gates? So for each person, it's individualized according to what they need.
And is this like a cost share thing? Is it a full funded? I mean, how do you determine that?
Yeah. Well, thanks to the generous donations to Easter Seals and the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, our services to farm family members are free to them.
Really?
We do not provide the funding for the accommodations, but we work hand in hand with the farm family members to come up with the resources to pay for those accommodations.
So if someone needed a lift to get in a combine, you guys would go help and get the plan and help connect them to the people that make them or have done that, and then the resources to pay for that?
Yes, a really good question. Absolutely. So if you think about everybody's individual farming operation, and then you think about each individual farmer's abilities and how it looks different for each person. So oftentimes one lift does not fit everybody's needs, or we're taking a lift and we're modifying it or adjusting it. So it often is what we call a lot of pail time, sitting with the farmer, sitting with the welder or a fabricator, and coming up with a design that's going to work for them, for their tractor, and for their operation. And then once we settle on a plan that often gets changed many times, we then will find a way to come up with the funding. Sometimes that's a farmer, sometimes it's a vocational rehabilitation, a state agency. It can be a multiple level of sources to pay for the funding.
Oh, that's exciting, because I was looking through a couple of the graphics that were provided, and it says that the USDA funds 21 state and regional agribility projects. That's not 50 states, that's 21. But it was interesting to see how this program has continued to evolve itself. And one of the other things that I pulled out of your brochure, Corey, they say obesity and diabetes is not slowing down. Arthritis continues to be an issue. And the one that I think is going to be even more prevalent this fall is mental health, psychological.
Right.
And all those are things that we can get help with through Easter Seals.
They all apply. And oftentimes it's co-occurring, meaning If you can imagine what it would be like to one day wake up and you're walking and everything's going just as you planned, and with the snap of a finger, you spend the rest of your life ambulating with the use of a wheelchair. It's not just looking at then the physical ramifications and adjustments, but can you imagine the mental health adjustment that is for not only the individual who experienced the disability, but for the entire family unit? So it's really combining those services and supports together, and not just, for the first few weeks. We are often in touch with people for 3-4 years as they really adjust to this new normal in their life.
So you guys mainly work with after they become disabled, right? Nothing with on the prevention side?
We don't. We don't really look at the prevention side prior to the onset of the disability, because there's other agencies and entities that's really their expertise.
Yeah.
But we really do look at the safety after they acquire a disability, because the last thing we want to have happen is they acquire a secondary injury because the accommodations aren't safe, or whatever reason that they're not farming safely with a disability.
Right. And we're sitting here at Suka up here at Farm Progress Show, and they have a lot of safety ingrained things.
It is.
And like their paddle sweep that I'm looking at out here, it allows you to not have to get in the bin, right? Which is both a prevention and also a cure probably for someone that can't physically get in the bin.
It's absolutely true. It used to be many years ago, there weren't many bins that had spiral stairs.
Yep.
Right? And that's now very common. Certainly what is beneficial for persons who have ambulatory limitations, but it is a great accommodation and a safety measure for all farmers.
Right. And how much of all the automation that they can do now, you can do from like one computer screen, where normally you would have to walk over to that bin, turn that on, walk over to that one, jump over this auger, and just so much is being thought into this. It's great.
Yeah, so the technology really has enhanced our opportunities to keep farmers with disabilities farming. So, I don't know, a couple years ago now, we actually had our first skid loader, where the farmer was in his power wheelchair and operated the skid loader from some of the power units that were interfaced on his power wheelchair to the skid loader. So the advancement in technology is great for everybody, and it just allows more people who have more limited abilities to continue to engage in the operation as well.
I was going to say, we've heard about lifts to get into a combine, get into a piece of equipment. I assume a lot of the assistance when it comes to a physical disability is to allow them to continue to operate machinery.
Yeah, it's, getting in and out of the combine. As you well know, newer models, once you get in there, you're pretty well set. But if you have an older model, there still might be some accommodations to be made. And then I would say, in addition to accessing the equipment, the other piece is being able to ambulate around the farm. So we know, the average farmer has all-terrain and utility vehicles, but for a farmer with a disability, it's an accommodation. It's their legs. It's their way to still have energy at the end of the day if you have a diagnosis such as multiple sclerosis. So, and then it's also, if you had a prosthetic device, is there enough room in the all-terrain vehicle to sit? So sometimes we have to accommodate those vehicles to make them workable for farmers with disabilities.
So the automation thing's pretty cool, that wheelchair. So now my mind's racing, like you get a John Deere autonomous tractor and all that kind of stuff. Like and then now we're talking big money.
Yeah.
How's that going to come onto the scene?
Yeah, that is a challenge. It's very common we can come up with a solution. The challenge can be funding the solution. And certainly there are farmers that have the capacity to do that, but the majority of the farmers that we work with the onset of a disability, their financial situation has just been turned upside down. So it is not generally something that they feel comfortable to spend a lot of money on. So it's really us helping them at Easter Seals to look at ways to coordinate and collaborate with other agencies and entities that can help with the funding.
So this is clearly, it's for helping someone continue to farm, but what about the family aspect and family members that maybe, a kid or maybe your dad or cousin or something that is a big part of the farm and you want to keep them part of the farm? Are you able to help them out?
Yeah, that's why you hear me say farmer and farm family member, right? So it could be anybody that's part of the family who acquired the disability. But I also am intentional about using those words because we know that when one member of the farm family is impacted by a disability, it impacts everybody. I'm a product of that. My dad had a disability, and there were things that I did on the farm that I thought, oh, the farm kids did. Well, I was really part of his accommodation, right? So it had a ripple effect on all of us.
100%. I grew up with a handicapped brother. My older brother's handicapped from birth, Sturge-Weber syndrome, and lived with my mom and dad up until last year, as a 40-year-old, and that's a huge deal. But he loved to ride in the combine. I told you the story when you came, and we actually didn't use Easter seals. I think we looked into it several years back, but ended up just getting a set of combine stairs, not a lift or anything like that, just modified the combine stairs so he could go up, because he could go up regular stairs and down regular stairs fine, just not a ladder. And boy, when you see the smile on his face and he could just sit in there all day, it's fantastic. And it's amazing when you think we could always get him in by getting him up with a tractor loader or back of a pickup, but you don't think about the safety aspect of if we had a field fire or something like that, had to get out of the combine fast, then what?
Yeah,
So
that's so common. I think we call it's just in our blood. It's in our DNA, right?
Yep.
Like we can't help it but just to love be part of the farming operation, and how awesome that you're able to continue to engage him and be part of it, even if it might be to ride along, right, to include him and be part of it. But I can imagine for your family as well, it was an accommodation, it was an adjustment to provide care for your brother.
It was, and at the end of the day, my parents were his main caretaker, and if my mom had to go do something or was helping on the farm, someone had to be with him. So that was allowing my father to continue to farm, really.
Yeah, and sometimes we think of farming is a great occupation that allows for flexibility and accommodation, right? If you were a paid and hourly employee, it might be difficult to take that time off work to provide that support, in your case, for your brother.
Yep. So what about on the mental health? I know Tanner talked about on that side, like what are some real case scenarios that you've actually done? Because it's a murky subject, right? No one really, we talk about it, but how do we help?
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, recognizing not only for a person who recently acquired a disability, but for everybody. And we all know the propensity of suicide amongst farmers and farm family members. So I think being aware is a critical piece. And then I think it is meeting the farmer where they're at. It's why I think it's so incredibly valuable that we meet with them at their home, in their barn, in their tractor cab. And I often tell people some of the most influential conversations I've had as a farmer adjusts to a traumatic change in their life with a disability has been in the tractor cab. It hasn't been in my office in the city. It's been after we've established trust and rapport and care, and that I've paid attention to some of the mental health and brain health concerns and bringing it to their attention.
Because you mentioned early on that there's 19 different programs, but there is one rural program. Does that mean farmers can't access the other 18 programs, or do they if it fits?
Yeah, if a farmer's eligible or interested in any of the other programs at Easter Seals, they can certainly apply for them. And some of them, of course, are for children or whatnot, but they do tend to be a bit more in the Des Moines, Polk County area, and not all of those services go across the state, whereas the Rural Solutions program at Easter Seals specifically travels to wherever the farmer is and to meet their needs.
So for you being on our podcast, you were introduced to me by a former coworker of my wife's, and she felt it was important enough for our listeners to get this message. Why do you think it's important to be on our podcast?
I think it's really important because we all know if we are a farmer ourselves, came from the farm, or know farmers, they're not the first ones to stand in line to ask for help. And the biggest challenge that we face is letting farm family members know we exist. We, as a staff people, all came from the farm. We either live with a disability, we have a family member who does, and we are deeply committed to the passion and mission. And so we just need more people to know that we exist and that we're safe and trusted to work with them as they adjust to life living with a disability.
So you may not have someone disabled in your family, but you more than likely know someone that is. and in the agriculture industry, send this show to them. Send them the Easter Seals website. Help out that way.
Is that the best way that our listeners can help you, or what can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. Share the message. Sometimes, if you can imagine adjusting to living with a disability and all the transitions in their life, it can be difficult for a farm family member to reach out to us. So if it's trusted and okay with the family, I might even suggest you give us a call. You be the one who reaches out to us, and we will delicately and respectfully follow up with them to establish a time to meet with them.
Can they, if they want to donate, can they donate, or how is Easter Seals funded?
So Easter Seals as a whole is funded through a wide variety of different ways, but the Rural Solutions Program is specifically funded through the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship and through the generous donations to Easter Seals. So absolutely, we always benefit. From donations, that's how we're able to offer our services free of charge to the farm family members.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear. And I was excited to get to meet you and the connections that we've had since. I know we're going to get a lot of questions, and we can send them your direction. But where do you see the future of being able to help farmers going?
Yeah, I mean, we aren't getting any younger as Iowa farmers, and so it's only more likely we're going to continue to have some limitations to continue to farm. Technology has advanced and increased, and therefore it creates more opportunities for, regardless of your limitation, to continue to do what you love. It may not look the same as it always has, but it's possible.
Yeah, and with the technology coming, it's only getting easier to help. So that's great. Technology is a good thing, especially in this.
Yeah, certainly. Well, what did we miss? What else is something you want to share before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to wrap up and say thanks to you, a huge thanks to you. Without getting the message out that we exist, we do no good if we aren't helping people and meeting with farm family members. So thank you for your support and rallying around us to provide this valuable service in Iowa.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. It's no wonder why we're here at SUCUP and you are here with us. SUCUP's a big supporter of things like this. It's crazy the amount of impact that SUCUP has on Iowa, on our local communities, on the world, really. I mean, they just give back a lot. So I'm glad they had us, let you have us here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.